This is Bonjour Chai, the Latke who couldn't stop screaming about BDS edition. I'm Avi Feingold in Montreal, and I'm here with Ilana Zakon in Toronto and David Sklar in Calgary. We are your Frozen Chosen. On today's show, we will debate all the big questions, like how bad is the U of T BDS resolution? Are there words we should not be allowed to say anymore? How many Hanukkah parody songs is too many? We will be joined for two of those segments by Tyler Samuels, but before we get to any of that, we need to resolve the biggest debate of them all. Ilana, are you Team Latke or Team Sufganiyot?
Okay, so I can't really eat either of them most of the time this year. I haven't had one of either at all since Hanukkah started because I'm gluten intolerant. And every single Hanukkah party that I've gone to, someone has put flour in their latkes. Like, you can use potato starch, and it seems like nobody is this year. So this year, I'm team let's make some gluten-free options. Is that a good answer?
Sure.
Well, so you mentioned sufganiyot, or as I like to call it, the devil's bread. I was thinking about this a lot in the past 2 days, and I'm thinking for Hanukkah, oil is the reason for this holiday, and latkes are the oiliest of the two. So I am definitely siding with latkes. They are the original way to go about celebrating Hanukkah.
Well, first of all, you've clearly not had some of the donuts that I've had recently, and they will easily...
I have never had a good sufganiyot in my life.
What? Where have you been?
Okay,
never.
I have to say, back when I
I
could eat bready things, my favorite was the one with the sugar around it. Like, I'm not a jelly person. I didn't like the inside jelly. I liked it with chocolate or just like with the sugar on the outside. If you go to like one of those, I don't know, are there anything in Calgary? Are there good kosher bakeries? Maybe that's your problem.
Well, first, we have donut shops, definitely. We are not living on
That's
the
not the
frontier
same.
here. But no, it's like we don't have great kosher shops here, and that is...
But then it's not a sufganiyot, it's just a donut. There's a difference.
So maybe we need to invite someone from Montreal or Toronto to open up a good kosher bakery in Calgary.
There you go. Maybe you can start it, David.
Sure. Okay, so, but
I'm
you
not
didn't...
getting up at 6 a.m.
Ilana, you didn't answer the question, though.
Oh.
Generally speaking, given the right options for yourself, are you Team Latke or Team Sufganiyot?
Like in terms of what I like better or what...
You have to pick one, right,
Oh, that's
of
so
the two.
hard. They're both really good, but I feel like if Hanukkah...
Yeah.
Hey, bear with me here. I'm trying to imagine Hanukkah without latkes, and it feels wrong. Whereas, like, if I didn't have a sufganiyot, I would be a bit sad because they're very good, but I feel like latkes are, like, the main thing. Does that make sense?
They definitely are. And if I think back to growing up as a kid, my mom would make Martha Stewart latkes, and that was the thing that signified
That is so
Hanukkah
wrong.
is coming.
That is
I wasn't
as
gonna say
delicious as
anything,
it sounds.
Oh, no. I will fight you on this forever. Martha Stewart makes the best latkes.
Did you pour, like,
of all
Aunt
time.
Jemima syrup on top?
Hey, you're not allowed to say that anymore. No. So
That's foreshadowing.
Wait. So okay, yeah. So look, the answer is obvious, right? Right, that it's latkes, right? Let's be honest, right? I'm sorry, Ilana,
Yes.
but that's it's not even my opinion. This is
But I
fact,
agreed with
right?
you.
This
What
is-
do you mean you're sorry?
Okay, perfect. Done. Thank you. So we're all on Team Latke, and ultimately, right, it's all because nobody makes good enough donuts. When you have a good donut, it is sublime.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And I can shout out some great donuts that I've had this week alone. But it's harder to mess up a good latke than it is to mess up a
That
good
is a
donut.
good point.
And to add to that point beyond, let's be honest, these things have a rapidly declining half-life. And if these things aren't fresh, right, not fresh latkes versus not fresh donuts.
True.
I mean, latkes are still edging out by a little bit, but not by much. Right, so you've got to get this stuff like fresh out of the oven or out of the frying pan. Otherwise, I'm team nothing.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So wait, I want to know, do you put anything on your latkes then? Because I go
Ooh.
plain
I
all
do.
the time.
But go ahead, Avi.
So this is my big theory as to why donuts have made a big comeback or a big resurgence, not a resurgence, in the Jewish world, is because we love sweet things. Right. And my proof that we love sweet things is that we can't take something which is savory. And clearly people that like latkes, it's because they like ultimately savory things, can't have it without some sweet on top of it. Right. You got to put some applesauce on there. Right. That's the way that
No,
not me. I don't have that. I'm a great,
Okay.
I'm totally fine with a clean, pristine latke that is done beautifully.
So boring.
But
I always did sour cream.
I'm okay with it. It doesn't mean that you can't have other wonderful things.
Yeah. Fair enough. I didn't like applesauce when I was a kid for some reason. Now I like either. If it's like good homemade applesauce or sour cream, I really need to make myself some latkes this week that don't have flour in them. I'm having this conundrum in a lot of areas of my Jewish food life where when I see a really good challah on Friday night, I actually get like a physical reaction watching someone eat a piece of really good challah. Like it was bordering on sexual. My friends were making fun of me.
It probably pales in. Hold on, we need to examine that, Ilana. We need to examine that.
It happened the other day.
Sexual relationship between.
I'm not
challah.
joking. Like
Wait, this. I have to say, it probably pales in comparison to the physical reaction you will get if you eat a piece of challah.
Yeah, that is very true. I was going to bring it back to sufganiyot in a second, but literally on Friday night, like I am such a challah snob because I grew up eating a lot of challah and I can tell when it's good and when it's bad. And someone cut into this one and I was like, oh my God, that looks so doughy and homemade. And they were like eating it and I was like, oh, that looks so good. And I realized how bad that sounded. So I'm watching these people eat these sufganiyot and there's like chocolate oozing out of it. And I'm genuinely getting just as much joy from like looking at it than I am from actually eating it because I know that I'll feel bad. Okay, I'm going to stop now.
No, I need to know. Ilana, how does your boyfriend feel about this relationship you have with challah?
We have a funny tradition now where like I'll wash my hands and do the bracha and then he'll like look at me and point at his brain as in like, I'm thinking of you and my mitzvah so that you get included in the bracha.
I'm flashing back to last week's discussion, and I'm waiting for the Hallmark Hanukkah movie of 2023 when Ilana does a remake of American Pie, but it's called Canadian Challah. Oh, the topping thing, brings us back to the great Bonjour Chai matzah smackdown of early 2021 here, where we have to get into interesting and more original toppings, because I don't think applesauce cuts it, and I don't think sour cream cuts it either. And I think we should be going towards more interesting stuff. I had cranberry relish left over from Shabbat Thanksgiving that we had last week, and I gave it to my kids with their latkes last night, and they were like, "Oh, this is awesome." So we have to expand what is available. I mean, to be fair, it is also sweet, but we should be thinking towards other things that go with potatoes to make it work. But that's that's that. I'm really glad to know that we are all team latke on this. And if you want to fight us on this, message us in the Slack channel or send us an email at bonjour@thecjn.ca. On November 24th, a BDS motion was passed by the Student Union of the University of Toronto Scarborough campus. While it has some of the language common to much of the BDS motions, it goes further to include kosher food provisions on campus to be in compliance with the motion and potentially tying student group funding to the motion as well. Joining us to talk about this is Tyler Samuels. Tyler is the Vice President of Engagement at Jews of Color Canada and a recent graduate of the University of Toronto Scarborough and is no stranger to the world of the CJN. Tyler, welcome to Bonjour Chai.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So before we, get further into the issue, can you just tell us a bit about what is it like to be a Jewish student on campus at the University of Toronto Scarborough? Meaning, how different is it? How many Jews are on campus? What's the vibe in general? Paint us a picture.
So when I first started at UTSC, it was normal. It was very normal environment. Wore my kippah, there was no issues. When I got there, the Jewish population was around 13, 15. So we were small, but there wasn't significant issues. Up until in 2013, they passed their first BDS motion. And when they passed that motion, then that's when we started seeing anti-Semitism. There were numerous incidences where I remember a friend of mine, he was at the Tim Hortons on campus and he had worn his kippah in solidarity and someone called him a dirty Jew. And this was right after the BDS motion was passed.
Can I ask what that motion was, like that first one?
So the first one was for the adoption of the standard BDS motion. So we boycott, divest, sanction Israel. SCSU will not purchase products from Israel or companies related to Israel. So it was very, I guess the term would be a moderate. And even then, when they passed that motion, we were still able to apply for student union clubs funding. We could try and work with them to promote Jewish student life events. And we did many of those events, especially with this BDS motion. And I think that's the difference between the 2013 motion and the 2021 motion that was passed on the 24th. Because their motion is insanely radicalized motion, that I would call it. Number one, kosher food would have to be supplied through a pro-BDS supplier. I have no idea where in Ontario you can find a kosher bakery that supports BDS.
To be fair, that's it's not quite what they said, right? David, you were doing some research in this exactly. Like, what is the wording and what was the backtracking behind that?
Tyler, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding about the motion, the resolution itself, was that you would have to seek kind of approval from the union first to get kosher products, be they from either New York or from Israel itself. You would have to almost go before them benevolently and ask permission. Was that what the resolution was stating?
So in the motion, it says, if there cannot be found a BDS supplier, the supplier would have to get an exemption from SCSU. So it does not mention the location or the place of where these kosher suppliers can be. It is only if the kosher supplier is a pro-BDS supplier, then that is allowed. However, if they cannot find one, an exemption will be given to one that supports Israel.
I'm just curious about this. So first of all, in your estimation, how many kosher students are on campus in Scarborough?
Well, to be fair, I don't think the number of how many Jews who keep kosher on the Sunni Union is relevant.
No, for context, because this is something that has been going around, well, it's not really going to affect anybody, so it doesn't really matter.
Yes, there are Jews on campus that observe kosher, but I do think even if there was one Jew on that campus that kept kosher, that still does not give SCSU the right to dictate where you can and cannot buy kosher food.
And my follow-up to that is then the provision in the motion about kosher food really doesn't have any teeth, right? We encourage that this can happen, but it's almost as if they know that this isn't going to happen. We want this to show you that, ideally this would be our greatest resolution, but we know that we can't deny people food, and so we want to put this in there, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't have any teeth because we know that kosher food is still going to show up on campus anyways.
Well, here's where people don't understand this motion. It's not about bringing kosher food onto campus. This motion is how SCSU will buy kosher food. They will not buy, they don't buy kosher food at all. Anyways, this motion will limit where they can and will get kosher suppliers for their own purposes.
Only in theory.
Because they already boycott products from Israeli companies or any company that supports Israel. They don't buy company products.
But on the one hand, there's no law, there's no teeth to that provision of kosher food. It was just, first of all, to be fair, that they walked it back. They
didn't walk it back.
The motion anymore.
They removed it. So they removed it.
They removed it completely. So
but they did not add any new language to that motion concerning it.
Yeah, so they walked it back completely.
No,
they said
they will not remove it because they said in a meeting yesterday where this happened, they will be replacing the language in January. May replace it. So we don't know if they're going to consult
but even if it's
Jews
not
on
changed,
campus.
It doesn't really, like I said, if they find that there's nobody, you need Hanukkah donuts for a party, and there's nobody that fits their criteria in the Greater Toronto area, they are going to give you an exception and let you have kosher food. So at the end of the day, you just keep asking.
That's still problematic. You cannot
I'm
know.
not disagreeing.
The thing is, it is problematic. Well, I disagree with you. The fact of the matter is, if this was concerning halal food on campus, would we be arguing they need an exemption for halal food? No. And that's the problem.
This is where I think that they're showing off they're really tipping their cards here, in the sense that they're not looking at other food purveyors and asking them, are you pro or anti-BDS, just because you're neutral.
Yeah.
They didn't go to the Tim Hortons on campus and say, hey, where do you stand vis-a-vis BDS? And they're just assuming that everybody's pro BDS except for the Jews or except for the kosher catering. That's a problem. To assume that the kosher BDS people are automatically pro BDS, are automatically pro-Israel or anti-BDS or Zionist or whatever it is, right? That's where you're tying your Zionism and your anti-Semitism together, right? I will agree 100% with that one there. Ilana, you're like you're trying to say something.
Yeah, and also I think it's a much larger issue, and I totally am on your team here, Tyler. It's like what we talked about with the Koffler Center back in the day. It's like, how can you say, oh, you can't be supported by a federation, for example, in the Koffler situation, whereas this, if someone is keeping kosher, it's already a limited supply, and now you're saying, oh, we're going to make it harder for you, and we're going to make you go through the emotional labor of having to come to us every time just to observe kashrut. Like, that's a lot to put on a community, and a small community at best.
Exactly, and I think yesterday they may have realized they went too far, but they didn't correct it. And even if we remove the kosher aspect, there are other parts of the motions that they didn't remove. They didn't remove where in Maxwell's Fines motion, where it would guarantee that student groups of any political affiliation that SCSU disagrees with would still get clubs funding. They didn't re-add that because they voted to remove that section of his motion. So technically, UTSC Jewish Student Life, if they applied for clubs funding, they may not be able to get it because they removed that guarantee. And if we look at the other aspects of these motions that they either created or removed subsections out, it creates an unbalanced, unequal status for Jews there. Are we really going to say that because, for example, if JSL invited a Hillel rabbi to discuss or talk about any Jewish or cultural event at UTSC, and they wanted to book space that SCSU controls, because SCSU controls space, as so does the Department of Student Life, if we want to use SCSU space, that Hillel rabbi couldn't, because Hillel supports Israel.
I'm curious if you've talked to any of the other Jewish students on campus in terms of how they feel about this resolution, how they feel it will move forward in the future, whether it's this year or next year. Have you engaged with any other Jewish students?
Yes, I talk to them every day, and I can say...
And what have they said about it?
They're angry. They're outraged. They feel like they are being discriminated against. This is a full circle of discrimination to them. Even with yesterday's meeting, they say this is basically a rehash of the BDS motion. It doesn't change anything. They may have gotten rid of, or so they claim, gotten rid of the kosher aspect, but there's no guarantee that they're going to include language in January where kosher food will be protected, there will be no exemptions, there will be no asking of kosher suppliers if they support BDS or support Israel. There's nothing. We have no idea what this future motion will say.
So basically, if I can wrap this up a bit and to summarize, what it seems like is that in past BDS motions, a Jewish student who's living on campus or who's on campus who has nothing to do with anything political, who's just going, taking classes and leaving, it didn't necessarily affect students who were not politically involved on campus or a lot of Jewish life, whereas this motion is actually affecting, and this is what makes it troubling, is that it's affecting Jewish life for people who, regardless of their political affiliations, but simply because they are Jewish on campus, they are going to be missing out on various services or funding or stuff like that. Is that a fair way to put it up?
We could do it in 2013.
We will be monitoring this situation. Tyler, thanks so much for coming on to talk to us about this, and hopefully we can have you again soon.
Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Atelier Lou Bijouterie in Montreal, Quebec. Atelier Lou specializes in watches and custom designed jewelry along with a curated selection of designer jewelry. Visit us online or in person and Eric Goldberg will help make your jewelry dreams come true. Atelier Lou is offering a promo code for all Bonjour Chai listeners using BON18 at checkout for 10% off your order at atelierlou.com.
Before we get back to our next segment, I just want to let you know that today we are going to have an extended Nacha segment to get into all the great Hanukkah songs, movies, food that there is to talk about. It's interesting how, and there's a lot of people that have talked about this now, that Hanukkah is this moment where Jews get their like pop culture time. But at the converse level of it, Hanukkah is clearly not Christmas, and so much of the Hanukkah pop culture is related to that. I've been thinking about this a lot lately because I like the Hanukkah music, but I totally see where like Hanukkah songs are often just, a parody or a cover version of something, or something that is like clearly in the vein of like it's winter and Jesus doesn't exist for us, but here's Hanukkah.
Doesn't exist for us. Hot
But Jesus
take.
does exist for us, but like, Jesus is not in our thing.
In the canon.
In the canon, thank you.
He was a mensch.
Was he on a bench though?
Ooh.
A mensch on a bench.
Have you never seen the mensch on the bench?
Of course I have.
I don't even know
okay,
what that.
okay.
I don't know what that is.
Have you seen the elf on the shelf?
That is the original.
That sounds familiar, but I haven't seen it.
So it started as a book. It
I've like heard these
became a
references,
toy,
but I don't know what it's
that
from.
people buy an elf and they put it on their shelf, and now it's a marketable thing. So that they then went and called it a mensch on a bench, and that's it. So
Gotcha.
Yeah. What's your takes on Hanukkah culture in general?
I mean, I really like Hanukkah music that I grew up with, like the classic Hanukkah tunes. Like I don't, to be honest, I'll listen to like the Maccabeats' new thing or like, those kind of bands just because it's fun and my mom sends them to me. But like, my favorites are, we had this like cassette tape of Hanukkah music and I wish that I could find it because there's some songs that nobody else seems to know. Like, I don't know if either of you know the song, the one that goes like, how many candles, how many candles?
Yeah.
So that
My
one...
mother would sing that every night to us.
That's not just an Ilana figment of your imagination.
No, maybe I'm thinking of the wrong one. It's not coming to me right now. It's another one that has to do with, maybe it is that one. Anyway, there was that one on the tape. I actually have like this sheet music that I stole from a party the other night because I missed the singing and I was sad. And I walked in and my friend's mom had just put away her guitar. So I took the sheet music.
Who is this tape by?
I don't know. I need to figure it out. It was from like the 90s. And it was a woman singer, and it was like a compilation of different songs, and sometimes kids were singing on it. If anyone who's listening right now knows what the heck I'm talking about, please let me know, because I would love to find it.
Was it a Montreal artist? Let's try to drill this down a bit more.
I don't know. I was like 4 years old. Do you think I'm looking at those
We
details?
gotta find this.
I would love to find it, but all the like my favorite Hanukkah songs were on that, and that's the thing is like, to me, Hanukkah songs are like a kid thing. I love to sing them in a nostalgic way, but I don't really have that much interest in like these new agey, contemporary, like adult Hanukkah music. To me, that feels like appropriated from Christmas.
Really,
what are your
like
thoughts?
stuff like Matisiyahu, Miracle. I think that's one of the best Hanukkah songs
don't know.
out there. There's Candlelight still by the Maccabeats. This is sort of reviving everything, especially in Calgary, where you don't see too many menorahs right now in the window. You're talking about growing up in Hampstead. It was like, I never felt like I was left out because basically every house was celebrating Hanukkah as opposed to Christmas. Here, it's a little bit different. So that's sort of the way I can like connect into my Jewish roots here.
I like that, right? I like the fact that there is more Jewish culture out there. I wish that it was spread out over all the holidays. But Passover has some moments sometimes. Like it's getting that like internet bump the week before Passover, right before Pesach. You get all of these like Seder songs or the parodies are coming up. But like, I don't know, I wish those people were just doing good Jewish music in general and not just, hey, let's have a hook that we can sell it to. And so because I know that people need Hanukkah songs, I'm going to make it for that, as opposed to, there's a dearth of great Jewish music out there right now, I must admit. And I wish that we were diversifying our efforts beyond Hanukkah.
I don't think it should be parodies. That's the thing, is I think that's maybe what you were saying, Avi, is like
I don't know.
actual songs, like songs we could add to the musical canon. Because I like those. The parodies for me are just fun to watch or to listen to, but I don't want to sing them. I don't want that to become part of my tradition.
Are you familiar with Light One Candle by Peter, Paul, and Mary?
Yeah.
I love that one.
Nothing wrong with it.
That's original.
It's not my thing, but it's original. Yeah, for sure. Anyways, we will play some of these. We will talk about more of these. We will throw out all of our recommendations for how to have an amazing culture-filled and nachas-filled Hanukkah in our nachas segment at the end, where we will let loose because it's Hanukkah. So I always love to see what happens when the reaction to an article is far outweighed by the original piece itself. The example from this week comes to us from CBC Ottawa, who published a word cloud showing a list of 18 words and phrases like crippled, blindsided, or selling someone down the river that may be offensive, and an explanatory article that brought forth voices talking about why these words might be offensive and need to be replaced. The backlash has both been intense and a little bit ridiculous and over the top, if you ask me. Tyler's back to help us talk through this. Tyler, what's your take on this?
I read the article, and there are some words that I agree. I think crippled, yeah, we shouldn't probably keep using that. But when it comes to tone deaf, it's crossing the line here. And I think when we're living in a culture now that is so, I guess I want to use the word cancel culture, but words have meanings and for different people. And I think when we're attacking words because some people might not be comfortable with some of these words, I think there needs to be a more balanced, moderate approach to how we decipher what words we can use and what words we cannot use. Because when I was looking at the article, things like brainstorm, blindsided, blind spot, these are common words in our vocabulary. And now it is, from this article, it's offensive to use these words for some people, which I think it's absurd.
Well, you have to admit, though, that there are some words that were part of our standard vocabulary which we don't use anymore because they are offensive.
Of course.
Right? So, I mean, the initial intent of saying, well, let's find things which are genuinely offensive are problematic. So let me ask you personally. Some of them they were talking about were problematic because of people, specifically for people of color, something like selling somebody down the river, right? Or grandfather clause, right? Is this something that you think about as being problematic to you personally? I know you're not speaking for all, people of color. Is this something that is an issue for a small minority of people, really almost nobody, or a lot of people are actually talking about this?
For me, those words, no, they don't impact me. I'm sure there are many or some people of color who do find these words offensive. But how I look at it, there are much greater words out there that are offensive to me, like the N-word. Or there was a word that was used in the original MASH book to describe a black doctor. I won't say it, but that term is no longer used. But I don't think grandfathered in it's offensive to me because it is also a legal term. And I think, are we going to replace that term because people find offense or it has racist connotations? And I think we have to be careful. We have to be careful how we go about these things because it can go further. And I think that's the problem here.
Yeah, and I was even surprised when I was reading over these 18 words you should not say anymore. Tribe even came up as one. And I was thinking, well, we've always referred to, the 12 tribes of Israel. And now they're saying we shouldn't say it all of a sudden because it could be perceived as harm, especially for indigenous groups and cultures. So I was wondering, I'm even curious whether they did enough research to always think about even the larger groups that have taken these words and have used these words for a very long time, especially as Jews itself.
I also, to change gears slightly, what do you all think about goy being a slur or Jew being a slur? Because those are two things that I don't know whether I agree that they're slurs.
I mean...
Anyone?
Let me relate something, which actually, I personally don't have that as big an issue with goy. I think that it's funny. I can recognize why some people take it the wrong way. The same way that if I was a non-Jewish partner of a Jewish in a Jewish relationship in a relationship with somebody else, I would not want to be called the shiksa unless, again, I owned it or I took it or whatever it would be, or the shagets. But that's it's a term that people have a hard time with sometimes.
I call John my shiksa all the time.
Oh, okay. Well, there's an answer for that. But I remember being attacked on Twitter by somebody for my alleged issue with the language that I was using related to trans folk on this show. And then it devolved into something of like a total hate on AviFest without me being able to say anything. And the thing that this person who was like really like arguing in a very aggressive way about sensitivity, then when I went to DMs, because I wasn't interested in talking about this in public anymore, started using this term goys all the time, over and over and over again. And I'm like, wait, you are so sensitive that I can't say certain things or talk about gender in certain ways on a podcast. But then as soon as you go into a private chat with somebody, you're willing to use the word goys. And trust me, this individual was using it in a very derogatory manner. I'm like, so... again, some of it is going to be very contextual. I don't have a problem with it, but I expect if you're going to be sensitive about everything, don't use the word goys in a derogatory way.
I think it also, I don't know, what comes to mind for me, it's an individual experience, right? So for me, I like to ask people individually, like, if you are of this people, like, what do you think about this? Because what I've learned from talking to a lot of my friends who, let's say, are people of color or from various communities is that there is no one answer. As you were kind of saying before, is like, Tyler might have one answer, and then another friend of mine who's a person of color or a Jew of color or whoever might have a very different answer.
So, I mean, I think there are words that we should not be saying. Growing up, when I was growing up, gay, that's so gay, was a very negative connotation. We have learned as a society to sort of not put the word gay in a negative connotation. And I really think there is some value in these words that we have taken from this article that we should move beyond. I think the difference is when it's perceived as harm to when it actually has direct harm. And Tyler, I do want to bring you back into this conversation in terms of how do we go beyond this, where people are upset that the CBC came out with an article and then Rex Murphy is, angry about all these different words and everyone is making a kerfuffle over this. How do we actually make good use of these things to come together better as a society, to say words that we shouldn't be saying, but also to have this kind of middle ground to sort of say, have we gone too far over the cliff of perceived, cancel culture, to make sure we're not going crazy all the time? Where is this happy middle ground, Tyler?
Well, with Rex Murphy, he's over dramatic with everything. But when it comes to a middle ground, crippled, lame, those are things, they're descriptive words that you're placing upon people who have physical disabilities or mental disabilities. Who would like to be called, oh, you're lame, you're this, you're crippled? Like, who would say that in our modern communication? No. And that's the balance. And when people are getting upset over a CBC article discussing this, there needs to be balance here. Because yes, some of these words are ridiculous, but we also have to have a conversation. There are a lot of words that we need to actually have a grown-up conversation and discuss how bad they are to certain aspects of a community. And I think that would need to be a logical, thought-out conversation that a lot of people need to have.
Look, I think what you're saying is that context matters.
Of course.
And my take on this is so much more that language isn't prescriptive, right? Language doesn't change because a few people or decide that this should change, or even a lot of people decide that a piece of language should change. Language changes when people decide to stop or start using certain words, right? And that happens when people recognize the problem behind what a given word is. There is precious little, some people would argue no, I'm not sure, and I'd love to hear your take on it, context in which one who is not, where a white person can go and use the N-word, right? There, again, very little context. Some people will say you should never, and we should write out, theater plays or movies or whatever where white people actually say these words. We can avoid that, or we can come back to that. So context is important in this way, but it's also about thinking about where convincing people, and I think that a lot of people do remain unconvinced that certain words should or should not be used. What I'm curious about, actually, do you think that there are some words that are totally, completely, doesn't matter the context, and I'll ask everybody, and it's a good way to wrap it up, that are completely off the table always? And do you think that there are a lot of words which are contextual?
Yes, and I go back to the N-word because you have Black rappers who use it. You have professors in academia who use it during classes when they're reading plays or stories that have the word. Don't use it because that word has been used for centuries to describe Black people.
Are you saying that even Black people shouldn't be using this word?
No, they shouldn't use this word because to me, this word is not reclaimable. There's no way you can use a word that slave masters would yell and scream at you while they're beating you as a source of empowerment. The N-word doesn't empower me.
The idea of reclaiming doesn't exist for you, right? The way that David was saying that gay or queer has been reclaimed in a way that is acceptable to be used in certain contexts or by certain people.
Yeah.
In certain contexts. I think that's the biggest difference. And you bring up a really good point, because I've thought about this a lot, David, of growing up, and people would say oh, your pencil case is so gay, meaning it's weak or feminine or whatever. And that is very much not okay. I'm glad that people have reclaimed it in a way that is positive. For me, the word that comes to mind when I think of that will never be okay in any context for me is the R word. That's something that if I hear someone say it, I will call them out on it, because I just don't think that's a word we need in our vocabulary.
What are the words as Jews? Sorry, I said we wrap up, but I'd love to hear everybody. What are the words as Jews that that people don't say, but maybe we could reclaim in some interesting way or not? I've always been a fan of we should reclaim kike, or how's my Jaime doing? I don't know. Maybe it could be fun. Jaime, because it reminds you of grandfather. Your Zadie Jaime is best friend there, but kike exactly. You don't want to touch.
Exactly.
Nobody should.
I don't want to touch that one.
Okay, I'm kidding.
I have no negative connotation to kike. It does feel like a very old 40s, 50s word. So if someone yelled it at me down the street, "Hey, kike," I think I'd get a little nervous for sure.
Are you saying
But I don't really have a deep
Avi,
connotation.
are you saying as Jews we reclaim it for ourselves,
Maybe.
or that other people could say it?
I'm okay with a good old fashioned "I am a Jew" and that's it.
Fair enough. Yeah. So this is great. Thank you, Tyler. It's been great having your perspective on these things, and hopefully we won't have to revisit this one again anytime soon.
Thank you.
We'd love to hear what you think. You can do that by either emailing us at bonjour@thecjn.ca to let us know what you thought about either of our segments with Tyler, or join and chat about it in our Slack channel. If you haven't yet joined, you can do that by sending us an email at bonjour@thecjn.ca. That's bonjour@thecjn.ca to join our Slack channel, The Frozen Chosen, and be able to chat about this or any of the other topics on the show. So now is the time in our show when we normally talk about nachas, the one thing that gets us through the week, or that got us through the week, that makes us feel good. But this week there is so much nachas that we decided we have to spend some extra time on this. Let's go around. Let's start finding out what our nachas has been around Hanukkah or stuff in general. Ilana, start us off.
So I live in a Moishe house again in Toronto, as I believe I have mentioned, but if not, I live in a Moishe house again because I did in Vancouver. And so by proxy, I'm doing a lot of Hanukkah, just as a baseline on top of the many, many other events that I could be going to, but I'm choosing to not because I don't want to overwhelm myself. Somebody in the Jewish community here in Toronto literally made a spreadsheet of young professionals Hanukkah events happening this week. And there's 5 or 6 every night, except Monday. For some reason, everyone decided to skip Monday. So on the weekend, I already had, on Sunday at my house, we had a candle lighting, and then we did a Torah study about the story of Judith, which was really interesting because I didn't really remember that much about Judith. And then we watched the Hanukkah Rugrats special, which made me very happy. It is just as good as it was last year. And then I went to one at the other Moishe house. The Moishe house annex had a candle lighting the other night with lots of sufganiyot that I could not eat, and latkes that I also could not eat. And then this Saturday night, we're having a big party at our house with both houses combined. I just there's a lot going on. I've been lighting every night, but I just don't know that I can handle parties every 8 days. It's a lot. It's a lot. How about you, David?
Well, this is probably personal for me, but my nachas is for my John this week. Basically, as I was driving back from Medicine Hat over the weekend, he went out to find all the Hanukkah candles. Now, it might be easy to find Hanukkah candles in any old shop in Montreal or Toronto, but there are very few options here in Calgary. So John first went to the Northwest Indigo. They didn't have any candles. Then he had to go all the way down south to the other Indigo. He then had a back and forth with the sales clerk on how to actually spell Hanukkah, and miracle of miracles, he finally got the last bundle of candles before they closed at 6 p.m. that night. So thank you so much, John, for doing the legwork for that one.
Okay, I'll go with a personal one also before we get into some of the other cultural bits. I don't buy Hanukkah gifts, as we all know. I'm the big Grinch that stole Hanukkah.
I don't either.
But my wife does. And instead of buying a bunch of small little things, this was actually a bit of my influence. I was like, I'm sick of having things that cost $20 that like litter the house within a week, that like are multiple things. We said we're not getting anybody anything that is unique and individual, but we're pooling all of the gifts all together into one thing. And the kids got an Oculus VR headset, and they've been playing with it. It's like
I'm so
they're having a
jealous.
And that's keeping them occupied, and hopefully that will keep them occupied for a very long time. So yeah, there's an Oculus in our house. Thanks to our lovely overlords at Meta for providing us with entertainment. That's our nachas.
You know, it'd be really cool if they made like a Hanukkah story VR game. So it's like not only do your kids get to play on their VR set, but they like relive the story of the Maccabees. Too much?
Okay.
I think that'd be a cool educational way of
Too
teaching
violent?
kids about holidays. Maybe.
I would do it only if there's a part
terrifying.
2 where the Maccabees actually, the Hashmonaim actually go corrupt and they become the bad guys in the story, and which is actually historically accurate.
Yeah, weren't
I'd
they
like to
always
see
just
that.
corrupt? Weren't they like the
they
rebels, like
started
the
very noble.
extremists?
They started very noble. No, they were the moderates. You should read my article about this, but another time.
But power corrupts always.
Who's got another nachas for us?
Sure, I'll go. I'm a big fan of the show Big Mouth on Netflix. So in an episode coming up for this season, Andrew wishes that he wasn't a Jew. His wish actually comes true in a dream, but then he actually realizes how great being Jewish is. So check out Big Mouth. Okay, which one of you were fan of the OC back in the day?
I've seen a handful of episodes. I really wasn't into contemporary TV as a teen. I was like, I watched black and white
You were deprived
shows.
as a child. Do you not remember like Chrismica? Like that was
Oh
the first
yeah,
time
like I know
Chrismica
that
was
it
ever
exists.
mentioned?
I literally never got into any of those kind of shows until like my 20s. And not even, I still
Because that
haven't
was
watched it. I've seen it.
That was the first time, like, I remember the melding of Christmas and Hanukkah because of the family. He's raised half Jewish, half Catholic.
Adam Brody.
Seth, and
I
he
know
was
things.
Adam Brody, exactly. So it was like the first time you saw the melding of these two kinds of holidays coming together, and it was in the first season. It's episode 11. Check it out again for the best Chrismica ever.
All right. I am not always a big fan of parodies, but when they're done well, they can be done really well. There was a song put out by the Late Late Show, and it was the last year or 2 years ago. It was called A Week and a Day. The group was called Boys to Menorah. And it was a spot-on parody of a Boys to Men song, a 90s R&B song, complete with the video with the rain coming down. Let's play a bit of it now. It's just so much fun.
Candle fire. Oh girl, you spin me like a dreidel. Candle 6. You pick me up when I fall down. Candle 7. Then you wrap me like a place and rock me like a cradle. Candle 8. Your eyes are fires that make me melt. Your love is sweeter than Hanukkah. Girl, Baruch atah, I don't know how you do it. Eloheinu melech ha'olav to be with you. I share my life with you. B'mitzvot tov. Vitzivanu lechadlich, never leave me.
Heartwarming.
They have fun with the blessings. They have fun with the video. It's spot on. It's a lot of fun, and it's because it's actually listenable. My kids want to listen to this song as a song. I was like, yes, we're gonna soon get you into regular '90s R&B, and that'll be next. But yeah,
Regular.
Boys to Menorah. The song is called A Week and a Day. That's my next nachas.
I want to give a shout out to Unorthodox podcast. I listened to their latest episode on Hanukkah, which fed into a lot of the stuff that Avi and I have been writing about being Hanukkah Grinches. or no, Christmas Grinches. I can't even, who knows? They had a comedian on named Judy Gold, and I'd never heard her before. She's hilarious. So it's the
What?
Yeah,
That's a Shonda.
yeah. Listen to
What?
it. Wait.
She's a Montrealer. She's so good. She's the best. It's a Shonda.
Anyway, it was my first time hearing her, and I found out that she has a podcast as well that I'm definitely going to check out. I subscribed to it yesterday after listening to that first segment. So if you want to check it out, go check out Unorthodox Podcast. It made me happy, and it validated all my feelings about why Hanukkah is not Christmas.
David, what do you got for us?
Well, I think I can one up you, Avi, on basically the songs, because last week I mentioned the Maccabees came out with a new song, but I actually think this is the best one they got, Candlelight. I'll play you a little clip.
Cause I'm waiting for the stars tonight. So I just light the fire, set the night alight. Night one, step for the fun, chocolate count, let the dreidels roll. Night two, get up and move, dance party in the living room. Singing songs for the Maccabees from dawn until night three. Night four, same mouse tour, getting showered in gifts galore.
Yeah, it's a fun song, but it's also still a parody.
Sure, it is a parody. Then I will go back to Miracle by Matisyahu and Peter, Paul, and Mary. Light One Candle. Those are original, and those are the best.
Good original songs. Absolutely. Can I throw some more songs in? You know what? I'm gonna throw a whole bunch of stuff in here, both at the parody level and the original. I'm gonna get these out of the way. So first is the and if they're great, like Spotify, Apple Music have great playlists with good Hanukkah songs and not so good ones. But I mean.
Yeah.
Oh Hanukkah, given the Jack Black treatment, was a lot of fun. Ma'oz Tzur, Leslie Odom Jr.
Oh,
right?
yeah, that one's really good. He's
That
so
was like
good.
because he is something. And then his co-Hamiltonian, right, David Diggs, Puppy for Hanukkah, so much fun. Right, like that's a good song.
I
what
love
else
how
do
many
we have
Jews are
here?
in Hamilton. It just makes me happy. Anyway.
The bands that you wouldn't think that are going to do something Hanukkah related, but then put their own spin on it, like Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings doing like 8 Days of Hanukkah, which was a lot of fun also. There's a, oh my God, maybe I should save this one for its own. There's like a whole metal album, called
Really?
Gods of Fire, Hanukkah Gone Metal, and it's like 8 original
Whoa.
songs all done in a heavy metal like style about Hanukkah. So like it has what's some of the track names? No Gelt, No Glory, The Quest for the Latke Oil, Spin for the Blood of Our Elders. Right, this is like, quality content. It's actually not. It's about as wackadoodle as it gets. But I mean, like,
That sounds really epic. Like, I don't listen to metal, but I kind of want to go listen just to see what that would even sound like.
Here.
On the fifth night of Hanukkah, I received a golden yarmulke. On the sixth night of Hanukkah, I received Judah's steel sword. On the seventh night of Hanukkah, I did receive a menorah constructed of bones. On the eighth and final night of it all, I received the gift of Bethel.
Because Hanukkah made with like epic guitars and blast beats, like, there's something about that.
Honestly, like maybe appropriate, like maybe more appropriate than any other genre to cover this holiday where it's like, like the Maccabees like going and fighting and restoring,
So you're arguing that the best Hanukkah songs should be metal songs, the same way, for example, that the best Passover songs should be reggae songs, right? Because of like the leaving,
Hey, I didn't
the
say that.
Exodus from Egypt, and you're arguing for genres. What genre did what musicals? What holiday gets Broadway musicals?
What holiday gets Broadway
like show
musicals?
tunes.
What's a good show
Ooh,
tunes?
David,
I'm
what do you
searching my
think?
brain right now.
Come on. It's obvious. It's Purim.
Okay, that's the answer. What kind of songs would it be?
I don't know.
Hey, it's Purim time, get together, let's
That
get
didn't
on.
sound like show tunes at all.
Not at all. It's like a polka song.
That was my audition, and I guess I didn't get the job.
That's for another play. That's for a different holiday genre.
Alana, bring us back here. What else do you have?
Well, there's a book that I really like. I grew up. I don't know if either of you got into the Lemony Snicket series of unfortunate events, but it's one of my favorite book series of all time. And Daniel Handler, who writes the books, is a Jew, and he actually has a kid's book that's so good. The Latke Who Couldn't Stop Screaming by Daniel Handler.
Very, very good book.
And it's a great.
Are you going to do a full recitation for us, please?
A recitation of the book?
I will.
Ooh, yes.
Yes, right now.
I don't have it right here. I actually do own it, but it's at my mother's house in Montreal, so this is not helpful.
Okay.
But I do love reading his words out loud, let me tell you. I have all of his other books here.
I know where my copy is, and I will put it up on the screen. And
oh my God, please. I would love to do that. Not joking.
Okay. Stay tuned for that. David, you got any last nachas for us?
Well, for the upcoming CJN article online, I did a bunch of reviews for the Hallmark holiday movies, so you can check out the top 3 that I gave that we discussed. It's all on a point system, between 1 being the least sufganiyot and 5 being the ultimate extreme sufganiyot.
What's a 5 sufganiyah like kind of movie?
You'd have to read the article to see which one I gave.
No, I'm not talking about the Hanukkah ones. Like, what's a movie that you would call like a 5 sufganiyah movie in the regular movie world?
In the regular movie world, The Godfather.
I don't know. No, I'm saying, does like 8 Crazy Nights count as like 8, like as like a 5 sufganiyah or a 1 sufganiyah?
I haven't seen it, so I cannot comment on that.
Fair enough. Okay, I'm gonna close this off with two quick last bits of nachas. One is the donuts from Pizza Gourmetti in Montreal are amazing. They are much more in the baked rather than fried thing. So our producer Michael Freeman, who kind of thinks that baked donuts are kind of weak ass. You just have to think about it as more of something cakey than like, this deep fried, like heavy something or other. I believe they are fried, but they're still very light and fluffy. But the toppings are great. It just and I'm not the biggest donut fan, as we heard way back in the beginning. But he makes amazing donuts. Go check out donuts from Pizza Gourmetti. I believe he even sometimes will make them on special order for you, not on Hanukkah, if you happen to be around. And you asked nicely. But ultimately, our last nachas is going to be the growing CJN circle. It's a chance to support the work that we're doing here at Bonjour Chai and within the larger CJN world. Normally, the CJN circle takes $100 a year. Normally, the CJN circle is $100 a year, but if you are in our Slack, you can ask us for a promo code in the Slack channel to take $36 off right now. If you're not already in the Slack channel and you want the code, join. How do you join the Slack channel? Send us an email. bonjour@thecjn.ca. And this is only the first of many perks that will come for the Frozen Chosen, the people that make up our Slack group. Send us an email at bonjour@thecjn.ca to join now. Get a code to join the CJN circle. Around this time of year, it's a great time. It's important for us to be able to move this initiative that we're doing forward. The CJN is back, but it needs your support more than ever. And join the CJN circle. Thank you for listening to Bonjour Chai for the week of December 3rd. Shabbat Hanukkah, Shabbat Rosh Chodesh, Shabbat Miketz, all the Shabbats all in one. Our producer is Michael Freeman. Our technical production is by Andre Goulet, and our music is by So-Called. We are a project of the Jewish Living Lab, and are distributed by the CJN Podcast Network. You can listen to all our past episodes on our new page at thecjn.ca/bonjour, and you can subscribe to the podcast and automatically receive all of our episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please do leave a comment and a rating on the platform of your choice, and as always, you can email us with comments at bonjour@thecjn.ca. I'm Avi Feingold.
I'm Ilana Zakon.
And I'm David Sklar.
The thing that was being born was a latke, a word which here means potato pancake. Latkes are a traditional part of the celebration of Hanukkah, a holiday commemorating a miraculous Jewish military victory. Nearly everything in this world is born screaming, and the latke was no exception, even though the latke wasn't conceived and born the way you and I were conceived and born, but instead was fashioned from grated potatoes, chopped onion, beaten eggs, and a dash or two of salt. Once these ingredients were properly mixed, the latke was slapped into a pan full of olive oil, heated to a very high temperature, and this is when it began to scream.